Good morning from the rugged homestead. It's June 2nd, and this is my favorite time of the year because everything is just coming into bloom. Everything's starting to grow really fast, and we haven't hit those dog days of summer yet where you're bogged down with maintenance and things like that. This is like the fresh start. So where last month I took you on a tour just to show you how the foundation had been placed, now we get to see how everything is starting to take off. This month I'm going to start off in the front of the house. Plus I have my two pear trees in. We've got the Bartlett and the Kiefer, and both are doing really well. They're really starting to put on growth, and I can already see branches that I'm going to want to trim out. Like these two are coming up a little too high, but I'm going to let it put on its growth now and worry about that in the winter time. We recently planted our hascaps or honeyberries. We got two in, and we got one there and one there. Starting to put our berry shrub or berry hedge in along here, so this will be a fruitful border between the two properties. And the raspberries are looking really full. They've grown up a lot, so no signs of berries just yet on them, but the plant itself is looking pretty healthy. And sticking with the berries, blackberries are on fire, as I suspected they would be. They've got flowers bursting out all over the place on them, and buds everywhere else. So we're going to be loaded with fruit again this year. I'm expecting it's going to be a even bigger harvest than we had last year. And then I'll be able to take the cuttings that I showed in the previous video on stool layering, and although here it's tip layering, and I'll be able to plant two additional blackberry plants along here. So these berries are doing really well. And then as the summer progresses, new canes will be shooting up. And we'll be getting ready for next year then. On the opposite side, the blueberries that we planted last year, they're in full bloom. And they're also covered with berries. Not this one. This guy's taking his time. It's got a few berries back here. There we go. Two berries. That's good. But everybody else has lots of berries on them. Even this guy down here has got a few. The biggest producer is my oldest one. This guy is doing phenomenal this year. It is just covered in berries all over the place. And I initially had credited doing the wood chips all along here, and that probably played a part. But I'm also thinking that since I planted more blueberry varieties, there's just more cross-pollination that went on. So it had a chance to finally produce, and it's, as I said, loaded with blueberries. Speaking of being loaded with potential fruit, my grapevines are off the hook. They're just full of what'll turn into grapes. So, and that's all the way up, all over the place. And it's finally starting to travel across the top of the pergola as I wanted. This is my green Niagara, but it's leafed out wonderfully. I really actually need to contain it now a little bit. Same with the red Reliance. Its grapes are getting ready to come forth. And this one might even have more fruit than the Niagara on it. So I've never seen grapes grow before. This is, my first time growing grapes, and never quite knew what to expect. So when I first saw this, I thought that was the how the grape started, and it is. But then all of a sudden, they started doing this with these little, I guess, looks like little flowers popping out of them. Yeah, there we go. And so I guess that's the next stage. So this is all a learning curve for me. The fruit trees are doing well. The plums, it's, putting on some pretty amazing growth already. I mean, that's why I guess you really don't have to worry about when you think you've over pruned something. You might not get fruit, but you'll certainly still get growth out of it. And we'll be coming back and tackling that. Maybe I will this year do a little late summer pruning on top. We've had some fruit drop. The fruit is still coming along here, as you can see. And finding it difficult to see other ones in here. Could be just because they're still green and they're hidden by the leaves, but we have had fruit drop on it this year, and I got to pick it up. You can see down here, we've had here, and a few others. So I'm not sure if this is going to be like the peaches from last year. The first year that they put out fruit, they drop it all. But we'll see. It'd be disappointing if that happens, because it looked like it had a lot of fruit on it, and now it's lost a lot. So we'll see. But I haven't seen quite the same fruit drop this year with the peaches as I did last year. They seem to be coming along. This time we got some nice ones growing. There, up there. It's not, a major harvest, and like I said, that could have been because I think I cut off a lot of the fruiting branches when I did do the pruning, but it looks like we'll get some fruit out of it this year. No real fruit drop this year. I think I've only seen one peach on the ground, but beyond that I haven't seen any. And I know, and I recall last year we had a lot of fruit drop starting in May, and the seasons have been a little bit different this year than they were last year too. But it's been far more, far less prevalent this time around, so that's good. And I'm looking up in my tree up here. You might not be able to see it, but I'm still seeing a lot of fruit up in the tree, so that's good. So we might get a peach harvest this year, which would be nice. And I actually might get an apple or two this year too. Looks like a couple are starting to grow. So at least that one right there, looks like I'll get at least one apple out of it. It does look like I have a volunteer peach growing here. This plant right there, it looks like that may turn it, maybe it's just a weed, but it's looking kind of like a peach tree, the leaves. So we'll see. I'm gonna let it grow a little bit and then maybe transplant it out afterwards and move it out. So speaking of volunteers, these might be volunteer plums. These are branches that I cut down last year, and they're leafing up from underneath the wood chips. So they might grow. So if they do, I'm gonna actually let them grow. And if they, towards the end of the season, depending on how they come along, I'll end up clipping them and maybe planting them elsewhere. We'll see what happens. Over here is my persimmon, which is really starting to leaf out. This is another cherry tree. It's the second cherry tree that I had come in. This is a Rainier cherry. It's my wife's favorite kind of cherry. It was a late planting and hasn't done anything yet. Not showing any signs of growth, but like I said, it was late, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Moving up, we have our potatoes from the Chitting Potatoes video. I did some store-bought ones, which are these over here, and seed potatoes that I bought. The store-bought are doing well. I've already mounded the dirt up underneath them. These are some extra store-bought over here that were crowded out in here, so I moved them over and bury them a little bit more. But they're coming along, so hopefully we'll get some potatoes, and from the looks of it, maybe I'll just be using store-bought potatoes next year. This is the other cherry tree, the Mount Morency, and it's doing well. It was leafed out nicely, and so I've got good hopes for this cherry tree. And as I mentioned previously, my neighbor's cherry tree right there. So even if my Rainier cherry doesn't do anything for a while, that one may pollinate this one here, and we'll get a cherry harvest sooner rather than later. And last on the fruit trees, the apricots. There, this thing is leafing out all over the place, all over the place. And they looked like dead twigs when they were put in, but they've come back. So those are the that's the food forest. And like I said, it's really starting to burst into life right now, which is pretty exciting. And so like I said, this last month is good because, you know, I started to get all the stuff in, and, you know, things started to come to life. But now with June, this is where all the life really pops, and that's exciting to see. So that's the tour of the food forest from May. As I said, everything is starting to leaf out, looking really nice, looking vigorous, most of them with their growth. And as I continue to plant in and develop the food forest, I'm sure it's going to look even better as time goes on. All right, if you like what you see, give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you don't already do so, and ring that alarm bell, and that way you'll be notified right away when videos like this are posted. And check us out on Facebook, where I regularly update on how I'm turning my suburban home into a homestead. Okay, thanks for watching.